Elliot has always been curious about moon phases. Elliot decided to camp on the tallest volcano in the world. Elliot lays down in his sleeping bag every night watching the moon. First night, he looked up at the sky and saw the turtle. It ate all the new moon. The second night, Elliot looked up from his sleeping bag and saw the turtle. He blinked, the turtle was gone, but he could see a sliver of the moon, waxing crescent. For 5 more days, it stayed a waxing crescent. On the 8th night, the turtle came back and only ate half the moon, first quarter. The 9th day, he saw a turtle, but this time it took a little bite, waxing gibbous. It stayed at waxing gibbous for 5 more nights. On the 15th night, he didn't see the turtle. It was a full moon. The 16th night, he saw a turtle. It took the smallest bite out of the moon. It was a waning gibbous. It also stayed at waning gibbous for 5 more nights. On the 22nd night, the turtle took half a bite out of the moon, third quarter. The 23rd day, the turtle took a bite and ate most of the moon, waning crescent. The waning crescent went on for 5 more nights. Elliot learned that some moon phases last for 6 nights, some other only 1.
Once upon a time, there was a lonely robot, so he traveled to Earth to see some interesting things.
What are you looking for? A math book? Hey, why are we doing that?
But the thing that stood out to him was the moon phases. He just arrived at the new moon, where he couldn't see much of the moon, but the thing he found weird was the moon kept changing to waxing crescent, where a little sliver on the right side was lit. Then to first quarter, where the right side was lit. Then to waxing gibbous, where the left side had just a sliver of darkness. Then to full moon, where the whole moon was very white and bright. Then to waning gibbous, where just a sliver on the right side was dark. Then to third quarter, where the left side was lit. Then last but not least, the waning crescent, where there was a little sliver on the left which was shining. He thought it was time to travel back to his planet.
Grandpa, where is the moon?
That's called the new moon. You can't see it tonight.
Can you tell me more about the moon?
Sure.
The next night. Grandpa, the moon is coming back.
Yeah, that's called the waxing crescent.
Cool. The next night. It's half full.
That's called the first quarter.
Wow. The moon is getting fuller.
That's called the waxing gibbous.
The next night. Grandpa, it is full.
That is called the full moon.
It's getting smaller.
That's called the waning gibbous.
The next night. It is half full. Is that called a first quarter?
No, it's called the third quarter. There's 2 quarters.
The next night. It is getting smaller. It is almost gone.
That is called the waning.
One night, little Caitlin noticed that the moon had gotten smaller from the night before. Oh my, the sky is so pretty tonight. But wait, why is the moon smaller than it was last night? I can tell you why. Don't be afraid. I'm here to teach you about the moon phases. Oh, okay. This is the new moon phase. That's when there is no moon in the sky. Cool. Next is the waxing crescent. This is when only a sliver of the light is showing to the right. Ooh, what's after that? Now is the first quarter. That is when half of the moon has light on the right. Then is a waxing gibbous. This is when only a small amount of the moon is dark. Okay. Next is a full moon. That is when you can see the entire moon in the sky. Now is a waning gibbous. This is when the moon starts to get smaller and only the left is showing. Neat! Then is a third quarter, where the left half is lit up. And then comes a waxing crescent. That is when only a sliver of the left is bright. Oh no, Luke, where did the moon go? It's okay, the moon cycle is just repeating. Oh, I get it now. The cycle just repeats itself. Correct. Okay, let's get you home now. Okay.
Once upon a time there was an Earth. It felt so lonely because nobody else was around it, until one day it looked up in the sky and it saw this big, bright, glowing thing. It thought, wow, I finally have a friend. And then it called out to Mr. Glow. Hello, Mr. Glow. And then Mr. Glow did not respond. Since Mr. Glow did not respond to Mr. Earth had an idea. He would send one of his gifted people that had wings up to talk to Mr. Glow. The first day that gifted person went up there, the moon wasn't there. He went back to Earth and said, oh, well, I will have to go back tomorrow. So the next night, that gifted person named Bob went back up to Mr. Glow and saw a waxing crescent. And he thought, wow, look at this big, bright, and shiny thing. It looks so bright, it's making me nauseous. Wow, this is amazing. I must go back and tell Earth what I've seen. And then the Earth said, wow, that must be the first phase of Mr. Glow. And so Bob said he would go back the next night and see what Mr. Glow looked like then. The next phase when The next night, when Bob went up to Mr. Glow, he saw what must have been the second phase of Mr. Glow, called first quarter. Bob thought Mr. Glow looked so bright he had to go tell Earth about what he had seen. Earth told Bob he needed to start speaking to Mr. Glow to see if he would respond yet. When Bob went up the next night, Mr. Glow had gotten even brighter. Bob thought that Mr. Glow must be in his third phase, called the waxing gibbous. When Bob tried talking to Mr. Glow, he did not get a response. So he figured he would try one more time the next night. Bob had a good feeling about tonight and talking to Mr. Glow. When Bob got up there, Mr. Glow was so big and bright he had to put on some shades. This must have been Mr. Glow's fourth phase, and it was called the full moon. Bob said hello to Mr. Glow, and Mr. Glow finally answered. He told Bob how he had 8 phases, and he could only talk when he was full. He told Bob about the rest of the phases, and how his next phase, the waning gibbous, he would be smaller. He told Bob after the waning gibbous, his next phase was third quarter, meaning there would only be half light and half dark. And then he would continue to shrink to his next phase, called waning crescent. After waning crescent, Mr. Glow said he would be gone, not forever, but just until he goes back to the second phase. Bob said goodbye to Mr. Glow and went and told Earth about what Mr. Glow had said. Earth understood, and they lived happily ever after. One day he wanted to jump over the moon. He tried jumping on the volcano to the moon. When he tried, it erupted. The volcano shot him to the moon, but Fred tried to go back to Earth, but he got stuck. So when Fred got stuck, he called the moon phase a new moon. When Fred got unstuck, he jumped over the moon to go back to Earth, but when he was on Earth, he thought it was boring, so he jumped on the volcano, so it shot him back up to the moon. When he was jumping over the moon, he realized that it was not a new moon anymore. He saw that it was a waxing crescent and decided that he didn't want the phase, so he went back to Earth. Fred decided to jump to the moon on his own this time to see if he liked the moon phase. He finally jumped over the moon, and he said it looks like a half-eaten pizza. So he said it was called first quarter. He stayed up there till morning and decided to come back to Earth for food. The next night, Fred jumped to the moon and saw that the moon was in a phase called waxing gibbous. He liked this phase and wanted to bring a friend up to show them. So he jumped back to Earth and went to find his friend Bob. When Fred found Bob,
Hi, my name is Professor Bob, and I am looking at the stars, and I am studying the moon phases. The first moon phase is the new moon, then the waxing crescent, then the first quarter, then the waxing gibbous, and halfway there is the full moon. Then the waning gibbous, then the third quarter, then the waning crescent, and finally back to new moon. This phase repeats every month. As you can see, I have studied the moon from Earth. Now I must go there to the moon and study it closer. So let's get in my rocket ship. Yay, I'm almost there. Alright, I have finally landed. Now I'm going to study rocks on this moon and see if they...
Once there was an Octake and a Scorpion. They battled each other until the Octake was flung towards Earth. It takes about 1 month for the Octake to regenerate 2 of its tentacles. When it arrived, it was a new moon, so he just had to wait till it was another new moon. It went to a waxing crescent, then first quarter, then a waxing gibbous, then a full moon, then a waning gibbous, third quarter, then finally waxing crescent, then a new moon again. Then he was ready to fight the again. He was flung towards the Scorpion and ripped off its arms and threw him haphazardly. Then it took its stinger and flung it across the sky until it broke off. Then, finally, it killed it. The end.
First, it's the new moon. The new moon comes 2 weeks and then it starts to disappear.
That's when the waxing crescent is visible for 6 days.
Then it's the first quarter, and first quarter is up for 1 day. The waxing gibbous is next. The waxing gibbous is up for 6 days also.
The full moon is after the waxing gibbous. The full moon is up for 1 day.
Then the waning gibbous is up for 6 days. Then the third quarter is up for 1 day.
The last moon phase is the waning crescent. The waning crescent is up for 6 days. The moon phases then repeat all over again.
A duck gets lost and has no friends, so at night he looks up at the sky and spots a little egg. The egg was light as can be, just like the full moon. He looks up again, but this time it's not the same. The egg has shrunk, just like a waning gibbous. For the next 3 days, he watches the egg as it shrinks. Right before bed, he takes one more peek, noticing that only half the egg was left. He decides to call it third quarter. A few days later, he looks up again, only seeing a sliver of the egg in the sky. He calls it the waning crescent. The next time he looks and looks, but all he can see is the sky. It finally hits him that he has lost his egg. Over time, the egg starts to appear, and he calls it the waxing crescent. Every night, he looks again to see how much his egg has grown. Next time he looks, he sees half the egg again. Later that week, he notices his egg is almost fully grown. After being lost for 28 days, he realized
There once was a fish named Guppy. He dreamed of being a fisherman. Then one day, a little boy named Timmy scooped little Guppy in a cup to keep him as his own pet. Once they got to Timmy's house, Timmy set him down in a beautiful, vibrant fishbowl by the window with a great view of the moon at night. Guppy thought one day, maybe if I learn the moon phases, then that will help me learn more about the moon so I can for sure be a fish or not. He started to calculate the moon phases starting with the new moon. The first time he looked at it, the first thing he said was, "Oh my gosh, where did the moon go?" Then the next night he realized that the moon was starting to get lighter on the right side. "Hey," Guppy said, "that's a waxing crescent." He was so fascinated by the way the moon looked that he couldn't wait to see what it looked like the next night. "Wow, it's a first quarter moon," he said the next night. A few nights later, he started to see the moon get bigger and bigger. "That must be waxing gibbous," Guppy said. As the nights went on, he realized that the moon was totally full of light. "Ooh, ah, that sure is a beautiful full moon." And the next night, Guppy started to get sad because the moon started to get smaller, and that night it was a waning gibbous. The next couple of nights, the moon got smaller, and Guppy saw that the moon was a third quarter. He couldn't believe his eyes at the stuff he was seeing. The next couple of days, Guppy was starting to get sadder and sadder because the moon was so tiny, and its name was called a waning crescent. The next night, Guppy was so sad that he started to cry. However, since it was a new moon, he realized that the moon would come back in a couple of days, and he was very happy.